Hopefully the battery doesn't die. Technology. Okay, yeah, so we'll just let that run. Okay, so we are here to get a good outline, and for Taylor, she's, you haven't taught before at all, right? This is,
Oh,
or
no,
you've
I have.
taught,
Yeah.
taught, okay.
Yeah.
So, maybe I was thinking that you don't have current students?
Not right now,
okay,
yes, but
while
I
you're
have.
in school, okay. So, one of the reasons that I have worked so hard with all the teachers, Havel knows she sat in and done some one-on-ones before, is because technique is one of the things that teachers, we know how to play, but we don't know how to teach the technique. And it can lead to some, bad habits. It can lead our students, our best intentions, to have fun or to play great music that they connect to or that they can play by rote. There's definitely a place for that, and I do a lot of that in my lessons as well. And I also work on that with students who really are in it for the technique. Because to be honest, some students, they can care less. I try, it's like sometimes you put a little effort in. At the beginning, I always do. Just gonna get rid of this so it's not. And then there's probably one or two where I just go, okay, I've done everything I can do. Talk to the parents. I have worked with the student, they're now a teenager, and they've been taught, but sometimes they're still going to do what they're going to do. So that's why I feel like it's so important to do it from the beginning. So I'll take students 4.5, 5 years old, and I will start right from day one with technique. How do we curve and make the round fingers and make the wrist come up? Different things like that. So that's the purpose of this. It's like I want all of the teachers who are teaching here using the things that I'm using in my lessons to make sure that we're giving all of our students that important foundation. And it's going to look different for everybody. We're all going to use different materials, we're going to use different music, we're going to use different approaches, but there's just this underlying important foundation that has to be there. So that's what this is going to be. And I've broken it up into different sections. So what we're getting today, I'm just going to go over and say, piano technique, what is it? I hope I printed the right thing. The thing that's on top, I did decide, because I'm recording this and sharing it, that I think it's important that the material that I'm sharing is just kept for our purposes here. So if you guys don't mind signing my little waiver, and then that's just a formality.
Do you have a pen?
Oh, yes.
Thank you.
I have a lot of pencils. It's like I don't have many pens in here. They're all on my desk. And I really appreciate you being here. I think it's so good. Thank you.
Yeah.
It's like I offer these things, and when you're here, that tells me you're in it. You're committed.
Yeah.
And you want to do what's best for the students, so I appreciate it.
Oh, it's nice to have a class for more than one, too. So that was a great idea.
Yeah, some interaction is good. I'm going to keep my eye on making sure that the other teacher doesn't try to, she didn't say one way or the other, so I'm not
It is the
going to.
16th. Yes.
Yep.
16, yep.
Okay.
Alright, so we'll start at the top. Piano technique, what is it? And I put down, I'll have some space for notes if you want to take notes. It's more than just good posture and curved fingers, because we know that anybody who teaches piano, if you open up any piano book, the very first page or two will say, it'll show the picture of the student, good posture, we're going to curve our fingers. And if that magically worked and all of our students saw that and then they just magically did it, boy, piano teaching would be so much easier, right?
Yeah.
Fact of the matter is our bodies are living, breathing, we're all different, our bodies are made differently. Some students are bigger, some are smaller, some are processing one thing at a time. So if they're learning about, where to put my thumb on middle C, and you want me to also sit tall and straight, and you also want my feet to be flat, now I've forgotten what we started with, So if we keep throwing these little, you're going to sit up, don't forget where your hand goes, your wrist is, by the time the piano lesson is done, you and the student feel exhausted and frustrated. And so we've all probably been through those kind of lessons, and it can that's what spurred me to start thinking and really creating a method. So hopefully this will work. Maybe we can all share, if you guys can think about it for a minute. You guys can tell me what you think piano technique is. What I usually share, and I think what we have on the website, is piano technique is the knowledge of how to play your instrument, the physicality of playing your instrument, and how to do that in a healthy way. So healthy playing technique. So what do you think, Howard? What would you
So,
answer that?
I don't know.
Okay.
I don't know.
Just
How about that?
That you're here to
Just
take
like,
it, yeah.
you know, the reminders are easier when it's something really simple, which I teach a lot of chords.
Mhm.
So when they're happy to find the next interval and they're like happy to do it,
Mhm.
then if I say, oh, keep that spine up, then they're really willing to go bing.
Yeah.
So I got nothing else.
Okay. Well, but that's a good point. Like you said, when you teach a chord, they feel successful, so they're in a positive mindset. So when they hear a reminder,
They're like, oh yeah, I have to do that, but I'm not so distracted.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
They can handle like one or two things at a time. So that's good. What about you, Taylor?
Yeah, I think just having like good technique or like teaching it is like just more safe, and like it just prevents a lot, just especially like injury and stuff. Like that can happen so easily, and like especially with students that are like older and they start getting into like harder things, and it's very easy to have any kind of injury. So I think it's very important because like the healthy aspect of it. And like I know with my piano lessons right now in college, like we go over like healthy playing like almost every single time I step in the room, and that's like the most important part to my teacher. So I kind of import it into my lessons as well because I learn so much about it. So
That's good to hear, because that's exactly what you'll see as we go through this. It's kind of the same approach. It's like every lesson should have, there should be technique worked into every lesson. It's, you can't just do nothing but technique for the whole lesson.
Right,
yeah.
I mean, we could easily get carried away and do that, but if we do that, that student is out the door and you probably won't see him again. Like,
Yeah.
all she did was talk. I never got a chance to play. We got to give them a chance to play. You got to balance it out. So that's what we're going to talk about, some of those things. And then that's also in there, what does it mean to us? How do we communicate to our student, to the parents? So that's going to be part of what we do today. So what I put here next is, I just want to go over, probably you guys know this stuff, okay? But I'm going to start from square one, especially because we're putting this on a video and people listening may not, okay? But when my student comes in for the first time, and let's say they're 6 years old, that's kind of a typical age, the first thing I do is I look at where their feet land. So when you pull out a bench, and let's pretend I'm 6, and the first thing they do is this, and they're like this, right?
Yeah.
And their feet are like swinging, their toes are like this, or they wrap their ankles around the bottom. The first thing I do is I go, okay, we're gonna get a stool for your feet, and I'm using my piano teacher voice.
Yeah.
I'm like, making it cheerful, making it fun. I'm like, oh, what do you think we're gonna do with this? And they're like, oh, what is that? What are those stickers? I got stickers, and they have to put their toes on their stickers, their tickers on their toes. They got to put their toes on their stickers, and that from the gate sets them up. Like every time they come into my room for a lesson, if I don't have the stool out, they go get it.
Yeah.
They know. And this I got literally from a resale shop. It's actually a nursing mother's stool. And so I got it for like $10 10 years ago when I moved here, and I'm like, this will be perfect because it's angled, so you want to make sure it's comfortable. I don't like the flat setting because if you flatten it, then it just feels it's not natural. It's not a natural way to sit. This little angle that it has, and it gives them for those kids that need to move. I don't care if they do this.
Yeah.
It's an energy. It's like a fidget. Okay, so now if it's too distracting, sometimes I'll adjust it for them, but usually they do this a couple times and then they get busy and they forget about it. Okay, and if they're doing that here, they're going to do it at home. So at home, if they don't have one of these, I'll say find something about this height, or one of these Rubbermaid containers, flip it over, and if we do a Zoom lesson or something like that and I see their feet swinging around or they're sitting cross-legged, Indian style, whatever, I'll say, where's your stool? And I'll usually make sure parents are within earshot, because usually parents will go, oh yeah, we always use the stool, and away they go, and they go in the bathroom, they grab the footstool. But if we make a big deal of it, but we do it in a cheerful, kind of like lighthearted way, they're gonna carry on. It's gonna follow through at home. So once they get their feet set up, the bench position, of course, I think that's up next on the list. I always check and make sure that we're not sitting too close. The mats, so that I don't get too far away from what's there. This is as they grow. I go back to feet. I think feet is so important to playing, because as adults our feet can lay flat on the floor, and when we play and we pedal, we got 1 foot here, we got 1 foot here. We're not going to have this foot going like this, right? Mm-hmm. Otherwise we're going to be all over the place with the pedal. Mm-hmm. We're not going to be comfortable, and we can't even play because our whole body, like this muscle here, is holding us up. Yeah. This needs to hold us up. So I'll talk about where their feet are. As they grow, they get the mustard and the lettuce and the ocean. And the kids came up with this stuff. It wasn't me. So again, it's just stuff that I have done over the years, and I'll put that there, and I'll put that on top. Now they're like 7, 8 years old, and now they've got their feet, so they're in between the tape. And again, all the stuff that we're doing with our feet, test it on yourself at home and see where's your weight shift, where's your center of balance. If you've got 1 foot off here, or if your knees, sometimes the teenagers, the knees and the toes, I go, oh, the knees are in, the toes are out. Can we line up the knees and the toes? They line up the knees and the toes, and their center of balance now is all like here in their hips. So if they're gonna come up here and they're gonna go up like that, see, they can shift their weight. If they're gonna move down, if they have to get all the way down to the low note, then their weight can shift. They've got the weight shifting from the right foot to the left foot. So if we wait until they're playing the advanced music, they're college level now we're going to talk about shifting the weight. That's way too late. Yeah. That's where piano injury has already started to happen. And so feet on the floor from day one, doesn't matter how old they are, even with adults. I think Carla mentioned, like with adults, I have one adult, he's like 64, and he sits at the piano all the time like this. It's like, and at some point, yes ma'am?
No bad today.
Oh, thank you. See you later. So he's sitting like this, and he's playing, he's, doing like this. And then I'll get him to sit up, and I'll say, okay, he's a guy, he's a man and everything. He's like, I can do this. I'm like, okay, I'll take that. So I don't bug him too much about it. He gets comfortable, but once he holds his wrists up, and then he's starting to hit the right notes. He's playing confidently, he's got fluency. And now he's working on Claire de Lune right now. And all of a sudden, it's like, oh, you mean I have to roll with floats to get from here to here?
Yeah, that one.
That's my big one, right? It's like, if I can get everybody to roll with float, but we can't do roll with float and I'll explain what that is. You'll know it. Yeah. It's like a float off. So, if you have to hit the G flat and move up to the A flat, I have to shift my weight. And so again, should we wait till they're high school or college to talk about that and they're playing the bigger pieces? Or should we talk about that when they're 5, 6 years old? That's why I take all the young ones. I take as many of the young ones as I can. This year, I can't take any new ones. I cannot do it. I gotta have you guys jump in and do that. So I want you guys to get all this stuff and make sure that I'm so passionate about it. Make sure that we're all doing it. Allows musicians to move freely, like I was saying, from the low keys to the high keys. Feet flat on the floor enables the shift. We talked about that. Knees and toes, all this stuff. Tall, strong spine. That's one of the things that, especially teenage boys, they kind of do this, right? And I start that again, like I have a little boy who comes in, he's 5 or 6, and he's got these little tiny fingers, and I just kind of, I pretend there's a button right here, and if they, and it's so tricky too, because as teachers, we can't really touch our students a lot, right?
Yeah,
we have to be
right.
careful of that. So this student in particular has a parent who's always right behind the bench, and that's not a typical thing, but it's the Asian culture. And so we have a good understanding, but she knows. And so I'll just kind of gently do this, and he sits up tall, and sometimes my pencil will just kind of lightly tap, and we'll give the elbows the wiggle, and we'll get the wrist to do an elevator. And so all those things that I put here, we're starting from the feet, we're working our way up through the body. And sometimes in the beginning, that might take an entire lesson, you know, and what kind of fun things can we put in with that? Like, okay, well now that we got our feet on our stool, we got our tall, strong spine, we got our wiggly, loosey-goosey elbows. It's like, what can you play on the black notes? And I won't care. It's like, can you play all of the twos, you know, can we get our fingers to stay nice and round? So there's all of these fun little things we can do while we're working on this stuff. And you know what? Kids who are 4.5, 5, 6 years old, they'll do this stuff all day.
Yeah, they will do it.
Yeah, like fun, make it fun. We'll draw pictures. We'll take out, I've got a picture thing. We'll get out markers. I've got games and stuff up there. That stuff is always, you guys can use stuffed animals. Those little guys there are very helpful. So this is going to be just so important that you're all making sure
Can
that
I
that's
interrupt you for 1 second?
Yes.
This reminds me of my students that have long nails.
Because I have. You never see me with these nails, right?
Right.
Right. And these
Not
are probably...
you, but those are still short
They're
enough.
still short enough.
They
right?
really are.
Yeah. Yeah.
But long, even for flute, you'd be amazed.
Yeah.
My one student, she's got crazy long nails, and she's playing the flute like this. And she's playing advanced music. And I go, listen, your nail can be, like, see how much white I got on my finger? It can be about there. Piano's different. You can't even have like this much.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
This is very unusual. I had a girls' day with my friend.
Oh,
and
good.
We went out and it's like, you know, my nails are usually like down to the bottom, and
Yeah.
because they're gonna break anyway. Like I can feel this one when I'm playing. I'm trying to be real because I want to enjoy them as much as I can.
Yeah.
But when I play this chord, I can feel it then.
Tadashi, I was almost gonna bring a nail clippers.
Oh,
'cause
it's
that's- he has really
Wow.
long nails.
Yeah, yeah. We got to talk about that.
It's so bad.
I had that one student. You had her like last year, the first day. Her name is Lana. And she had the super long nails.
Super long.
And she went to Jen, who made too much of a big deal about it.
Yeah.
And Mom was like, nope, she loves her nails. And I talked to her. And I said, you know what, if you're going to have long nails and you're going to play piano, that's okay, but you're only going to get so far. We're still going to do some stuff. And by the next week she came in, she goes, I went to camp, all my nails broke off. And after that, it was not even an issue. It was just like done.
It's not even about like necessarily the uncomfortability, but like it also distracts the young students by the clicking. So
yeah,
yeah.
And they
Or
just
even
can't do the round at all.
yeah.
They
And
can't do it.
No,
Yep.
this knuckle will sink because they don't want to break it.
Yeah.
And at prom, when the girls come in and they've got the
Yeah.
acrylics, I have one who was actually preparing for an exam, and she was playing everything like this, you know. And I said, "Well, you got to do your," and I'm like, "Oh, this is really terrible," you know. And it was, like this, I can get to the nails, but these will come off probably the next time I go get it done.
But you can still make the general shape.
Yes, yeah, but the really super long ones, maybe what we should do, like this one is a little bit long, but we should probably take a picture maybe of how
How
this
long?
looks and say you can have pretty nails,
Yeah.
but they don't have to be crazy long.
Yeah.
It's like in sports.
Yep.
If you're going to play sports, you're going to wear the jockey shorts and all the, the tube socks, and it's not going to look pretty, but you're going to play well. So maybe we can say you can have pretty nails, but they can't be too long.
Yeah.
So that's probably a good thing we should talk about.
Okay, that's all I want to say.
One more thing here where it says fingers should line up with the keys. Speaking of fingers, wrist should be behind the finger that's playing. Do both of you understand the concept here? Like maybe you're talking about that in classes. What about you, Havila? What would you?
Fingers should line up with the keys, like just in the middle of the key. Like not
No,
halfway.
like as you move, like so if I'm playing a chord and I'm gonna move like from here and then maybe I'm gonna go to the D. instead of going here and here, like see how my fingers angle off?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, have you seen students where the fingers just
Oh, yeah.
angle because they want the thumb to stay here?
Yeah.
So I teach everybody the fingers should line up, so here, and then we roll forward.
Oh,
So
yeah.
now my fingers are always lining up this way.
Or
Always
it's
very
like
well.
scales, like your wrist follows.
Right. So the wrist is going to follow the finger playing, so,
Yeah.
and that's, you know, when you get to your 2 octave.
Yeah.
And then we're also, there's my F sharp. And I'm having them take the shifting weight going up. Yeah, so the wrist should follow the finger. Most people will try to do, right?
Yeah. Yep.
And you'll see a lot of this. And they're like, elbow is all tight, and, you know, when they have to take it down,
Yeah.
right? And that's the sinking knuckle. And when they do this, see, now my fingers have angled off.
Yep.
So I always explain, I've even gone so far as to write a scale and put arrows, like my wrist is down, up, up, down, up, up,
Yeah.
down, up, down, up. So follow the contour of the fingers. And so for adult students, that's where this is going to be the biggest deal. You know, obviously our young ones are going to have a little time before that becomes an issue. But teenagers especially, of course, they're just going to want to keep their thumb here. And if they have to play an E flat, you know, if they have to go, the elbow's going to come up, right? But if we, so we want to get those fingers to line up with the keys. And that's a good visual for students, because sometimes they say, well, why? Like, why do I have to do that? Why is that such a big deal? I'll be like, okay, so you have to play an E flat. And what's your elbow doing, and how are your fingers when you flatten them out? And when they see the angle, the trajectory of their fingers, what if your next chord is up here but your fingers are pointing here? They're like, oh, well, that's gonna.
Still, for teenagers, they don't want to hear that.
Yeah.
They don't, but some visual, concrete things
Yes.
can be helpful. And for adults, now adults will probably be more willing,
Yes.
Yes.
right? So with teenagers, we do have to be a little more persistent.
Yes.
And so it's about how you approach it, the tone of voice. How are we, you know, so if I play something like that for them, they're like, oh, what are those chords you played? You know, can I play those? I'm like, sure. You want to line your fingers up for me?
Mm-hmm.
So I've done different things like that with teenagers. You can be a little more goofy. You can be a little more direct. You can be a little more, you just got to know your teenager. And see where can you go with this one? Are they moody today?
Yeah.
I've got one that's so moody. I'm like, she's 13. I'm like, we're just go time. We're just playing. Okay, we're done. See you later. See you next week. It's like I don't get emotional with them because they're going through their own set of emotions. But yeah, that good question. Good thing to mention. It's going to be different with all the different ages. You guys ready to move on to breathing?
No.
Okay. So I had a student in here today. She's pregnant actually right now, and so I was talking to her because I think she's due in September, October, and so we're talking about things she can do after the baby comes. And I said, you know, she's just mastered the G major scale, and she's got all the right motion, and she thought she had it. And I'm always like, I'm always really careful. I'm like, there's gonna be one more thing. Are you ready for that? She goes, yeah. What is it? You know, it's like, okay, how about breathing? She goes, what do you mean? I go, breathing. I said, when you're breathing or when you're working on something, you're concentrating and you stop breathing. And you go, and here's where I went out. And I didn't breathe until I got to here. Then you relax a little bit because you're almost at the end. So for students, we have to be there, kind of like be observant. Like, are you breathing? Are you? So don't fall off the bench, please.
Yeah.
But they get so intense, and you see the shoulders come up, and you see the tension creep in. And I said to this student, I said, now you want to play in a way that's healthy for you and the baby. So you gotta keep breathing. I said, you have to play the first octave breathing in. Now we're gonna exhale, and now we're gonna inhale. And we're going to exhale. And that feels so much more relaxed. And she was smiling and she was moving. And so breathing to me is something that doesn't get talked about, and obviously not in books. I don't know how much your classes are talking
Yeah,
about
we
it.
go over it a lot. Like,
You do?
in,
Okay, good.
at least in the collegiate level, and
Mhm.
but I brought it to younger students because I know how helpful it is. Like,
Mhm.
especially when, for example, let's say I'm playing, like, I was doing a Rachmaninoff etude, and a lot of, like, chords had to have, like, certain feelings or moods or something, and if I exhaled with certain chords, it would sound a certain way, or it would, like, feel a certain way. So, like, I kind of bring that to younger students because I'm like, oh, like, try to, like, breathe in here, and then they, like, it just makes them feel better and about what they're playing too. So yeah.
Yeah, it gives them more expression.
Yeah.
They can play a little more expressively. They can have a little more freedom. And if we can keep tension out of when we play, then all this other stuff that we're working on really is meant to eliminate tension. Tension is the thing that will interfere the most when we're practicing or performing. Can you all agree on that?
Yeah.
I mean, my worst performances were when I was so tense and I was so nervous, and I was like, one time I had to play and my right knee was just doing this the whole time.
Yes.
And I was like, oh, this really stinks. But you have to play through it, you know, and you get through it. But you don't have a good time doing it, so you want to feel good about it when you're done. But even when you're practicing, even when you're learning, it's like they're a long ways off from having to play Rachmaninoff or Bach or Beethoven or Brahms or something like that. So if we can, again, this is about building it in from the get-go. When, you know, it's like too many, and the reason I'm doing this, I think too many transfer students come in and they have all this stuff going on. And I can tell they got their first book, they skipped the primer, they went to the lesson book. They said, here's middle C, here's your Every Good Boy Does Fine, here's your face, here's all of that. And they spent a couple weeks, you know, teaching them the notes on the treble clef, maybe a week or two on the bass clef. And then they started pulling out all of these Für Elise and, you know, you name it, The Entertainer or some of those popular pieces. And they've just skipped so much. And it's hard to then go back and say, you know what, we gotta go back to square one. Because all this stuff got missed. And I can get most of them, it takes about 2 years. When I get a transfer student, it takes me about 2 years to get this worked in for them. Yeah. And my goal, my commitment is that I don't want any of our students to walk out of this building to go work with another teacher, go to college, go to a performance, and they're having the same issues. I want this to be taught.
Yeah, there were some things, like, even my teacher, like, even if she did acknowledge them in lessons, we didn't, like, specifically go over them a lot. Like, I went to college, and they were like, why do you not do this? Like, you should be doing this. And I'm like, oh, okay. It's just, like, the little things, like, even with breathing. I didn't go over it a crap ton with, like, my, like, teacher before, like, in, like, elementary, middle school, high school, but I go to college and they're like, you might want to breathe there. I'm like, oh, I didn't think about that.
Yep, exactly. That's the kind of thing, and that kind of breathing is, it can be physical breathing, it can be the breath we take from the keys at the end of the phrase. That is the hardest thing, and we're going to talk about that. We're going to get to that. But yeah, that's what we have to do. You know, if we're going to be taking students in and making our commitment to them, you trust us to know what we're doing, we got to know. I have it. So the breathing to me, the body check for me, it's like if I'm breathing, I'm paying attention to my body. I'm paying attention to maybe my foot has moved and now I have to readjust. Maybe I went to play this note and now I forgot to come back to my center. I'm still like leaning this way, but my hands are over here. The breath that I take becomes like now I'm back to the center. It's a reset. Okay, and if I'm not in the habit of breathing, if it's not part of when I practice, it's not part of when I have a teacher bringing it up, we are the body check for them. Like I tend to I'll sit here depending on who they are, I'll sit here, I'll sit on different sides, but if I see if their feet have slid back here, like some of my guy students who are in their 20s, I'll sit like kind of like where Hava is at, maybe not quite that far back. But I'll always see their feet come back and I'll go, hey, let's bring our feet forward. Just something simple, and they just automatically do it. And so those little things that we're doing for them will become incorporated and part of what they're going to do on their own. Because then eventually, after a few weeks, they'll be like, oh, wait, oh, yeah. And I tell them, it's not me being picky. It's not me it's me looking out for you.
Morgan will go on her own without me saying breathe.
Yeah.
And it's amazing. Then she'll do a second one. I didn't even say anything. She sounds disappointed, but it's not the way.
You know what she's doing, right?
Yeah.
She's good, and you've taught her well. All right,
And it's
so
totally a reset.
it's a reset, yeah.
Totally is a reset.
Because then we have clear thinking,
Because
right?
she's going, I'm not frustrated. I want to play this. She's actually doing that.
That's right. That's exactly what this next one is. It's clear thinking.
Ah.
Because the oxygen, I have talked to a lot of people about. If you learn a little bit about our, just your body, like the actual physicality of our body, if we deprive ourselves of oxygen, all of our organs and everything slows down. The blood flow, the oxygen level in our body, it slows. Like my brain tends to speed up. Other people might slow down. But it definitely changes our chemistry just enough to where, have you ever been like, somebody says, this happens to me all the time. We'll be watching a movie and my husband will say, he'll look over at me and go, who is that on the screen? And I'll go, Denzel Washington. And it's like, I'm so way off. It's like, I just got nervous, like, oh, I gotta give an answer. And like, all of a sudden I'm not breathing and I've just cut off my oxygen in my brain. And then 2 minutes later I can answer, it's Ryan Reynolds. No. But that's kind of, these are things we have to train our students to do because we have to train ourselves to do them.
We have to train it, and then they'll usually do it with us.
Yeah, and sometimes when we're performing, so a lot of people who just take the, the performance part of that came to them so easily, they didn't have to, they just kind of naturally, they never got nervous, or they never had moments where they stopped breathing. They were just having such a good time. They were so relaxed, they were so chill, and everything just went great. I was not one of those people. I was very like, oh my gosh, everybody's looking at me and I have to play for Elise and my parents are making me do this and I really hate my parents right now. Yeah, it's like performance anxiety, and it's like that's why we don't push people to go to recital. We give them the option, and if they want to do it, and if a parent's pushing them to do it, as I've told teachers, I'm like, that does not mean they have to do it. It's our job as teachers to say, this one's ready, this one's not.
Yeah.
And so just because a student signs up and says, yep, I'm going to be in the recital, even the student could say that at the beginning, and then we get 6 weeks out, and now it's time to make a commitment and start practicing. And we're noticing that all these things are an issue every week. I'd be like, no, we're not ready. We've got the next one coming. Let's just wait. And we can do it in a positive way.
I had a different experience with like the recital thing, but I know that it doesn't work with everyone. Like my teacher growing up, she made everyone do the recital. She made everyone memorize the music, and if you didn't memorize the music, then you could not play. So I'm an extremely nervous person, so like I would get nervous beforehand, I would get on stage and everything would go away because I loved performing. But then I would see other people get up and get super nervous, like not remember what they were playing, just like get up and cry because they couldn't do it. And so like I definitely agree with the, like if you're not ready, don't do it, and I wish that she did that as well because I did not have that experience.
Yeah. Yeah, and that, sometimes there are, on the other side of that, there are kids who, they're ready for it.
Yeah.
And if we don't push them to do it, they won't.
Yes.
There's so many different sides of it that's where you read your student. You get to know your student. And students that you've had for 2, 3, 4 years, by then the ones who should or shouldn't. I have one who gets so nervous. I just put him first every time.
Yeah.
And I don't mention it to him. If he brings it up to me and says he wants to do it, I'll say, okay, let's do it. You sure you're ready? And we make it super simple. We make it super fun. You pick out the song. If it's like 4 measures of something, we did, what was that song from Peaches, 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 Peaches? We did that at the recital.
Oh, Mario?
The Mario, I don't know, Sonic. The Sonic.
Oh, yeah.
That's what he wanted to do, and we learned it, just basically with notes, big old notes, so he could visualize and play it and have a successful experience. But that wouldn't be how I teach him every day. It's like, okay, if this is for the recital, But I knew, I'm like, if I waver even the littlest bit, he's not getting up there.
Yeah, and something else in the recitals that I would do, she would make everyone go by level. So when I would see myself not be like the advanced side, like that would also make me anxious about it, and just the little things add up.
And plus, if there's someone younger than you that's later,
yeah, exactly.
then it's like, oh, great, I'm 10, and there's a 7-year-old playing the piece.
Yeah, exactly.
So I try to take that into consideration. I would say we kind of go by level.
She does a great job at blocking those. Doing the sections, it makes it so much less obvious of who's
it was very obvious.
Yeah. No, a lot of times I'll just go by like family, so parents can come up and get a video of all 3 kids, and then they, you know, their kids are done, and then it's not so much about level, but it's about, you know, what makes sense. There's
what makes sense.
Yes. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So all of that is part of the big job of recital stuff. But okay, so we're gonna move on into the next page. I hope this has been good so far.
It's been excellent.
Good. Okay, so how do I make this a priority for myself, my student, and my parent? So this is probably where I have the biggest discussion with teachers is, okay, I know why it's important. I know how to do it. I know what they need to do. How do I get them to do it? And how do I get parents to enforce it at home? And a lot of times this is the biggest problem. Like here, we give them reminders, they do everything, they play their piece perfectly by the time they're done, but then they go home and like one parent actually said to me one day recently, she goes, I was so surprised to see she was doing this. She goes, I wasn't quite sure what she was doing. I said she was doing exactly what I showed her how to do. Because we're working on a staccato, making the wrist pick the hand up instead of, right? This is one of those favor songs where they tend to go too fast. And then if you press, and I show the mom, I go, when I do this, I'm letting my wrist pull my fingers down, and I have all this strain going right up here. And I'll have sometimes the parents do it. I'll say, just sit here and push. What do you feel? And they'll go, oh yeah, it hurts right here. I go, okay, now you want your kid to sit at home with the piano for 30 minutes and do that. What do you think that's doing to their arm? And they're growing, and they're 6, 7 years old. Their muscles are developing, and they'll say, oh, it doesn't hurt, it's okay. We've all heard students say that. I'm like, I know it might not hurt now, but these are little things that might become bigger. And you might not realize it because you're 6, but when you get to be old like me, and you're at the chiropractor 3 days a week, trying to get all the muscles unknotted so you can actually do what you love to do, you're going to come back and thank me. And some kids you can say stuff like that, and you can be really fun with it. But sometimes, and I have some parents, like I have one parent that'll go toe-to-toe with me every week. He brought his kid to me because he wasn't getting any technique. The teacher was giving him hand. Oh. The kid was playing fur-elise. He had made it through the first section of fur-elise, and he was into the second section, and he couldn't do it. And I'm like, well, why is he playing this? He's 7, and he couldn't read notes, and he didn't understand rhythm. But, he could play all of fur-elise, and he plays it super fast, and he thinks that's very impressive. Well, there's other things going on with this kid. But we can't say those things, right? Yeah. But when it comes to technique, I'll go toe-to-toe with the dad. And I'll say, now you brought him here because you wanted me to teach him technique. So you're teaching him, every single chord at home, right? Which is impressive. But can he just play a simple pentascale 3 times in a row without speeding up? And can he just roll the float at the end and lift the lifts? Oh my gosh, this kid he's probably...
That's when I hate to interrupt you, that's when I gave up on teaching lifting. Because it was so hard to teach them how to lift without them going like this. Yeah. And even when I said about the laundry, where it's like, don't do your sister's laundry, don't do your dad's laundry, just do your own laundry, just lift.
Mm-hmm.
I gave up.
They exaggerate?
Either too much or they just got crazy about it. Like, we're doing some crazy shit.
I understand. I've seen it all. I've definitely
seen it all.
Yeah.
So sorry to interrupt.
Nope, that's okay. That's a good thing to talk about. Because again, parents, aren't gonna understand it either. Parents don't.
They're like,
No,
what is
they-
this crazy girl?
right.
Yeah.
Why can't they just play the next song?
Yeah.
And I'll say because they didn't do their lifts. Well, are they really important? Oh yeah. And so then it's about, okay, that's what this is about. How do we approach that?
Mm-hmm.
So what Havala is saying, like when you show them how to do a lift, like maybe they're, you know, like, and they're like, oh, what do I do now? I'm like,
Yeah.
now we're gonna do a lift. And what they're supposed, this is where roll, lift, float comes in. I say the finger doesn't leave the key until the wrist comes up. And when the wrist comes up, the fingers stay down. And I have to do it in slow motion a few times. And that's where demonstrating to the student, I think it says demonstrate for the students and the parent. Demonstrate, and sometimes I'll say put your hand under your wrist, don't hold it tight. Pick your hand up, let your hand drop and come back. I'll say this is your hot air balloon. Here's your parachute. Okay? Your hot air balloon takes you up slowly. The parachute brings you back because of gravity. So different kids, different ages will get that. Some kids love the hot air balloon. They're like, ooh, this is where we get into. Can I go this high? And you know what? Have some fun with it. Be silly with it. And just say, well, what happens if you go this high? Are you going to make it back to the correct key? But if you go, and sometimes I'll use the ledge of the piano. Like I'll put the book right here. I'll say when you lift, and their hand's smaller, so when they do the lift, as soon as your wrist bumps in here, you got to come back. You got to come back. And I'll have them do this. And I won't try to make that happen while they're learning a piece.
Right. Separate.
Yeah, it's got to be done as something either before they learn the piece. Maybe, like I've had it with a few of them where they came back and they played their whole song correctly, but they have not done any of the lifts. And I'll say, okay, we're going to spend an extra. I will never say that until after I've worked on it, because a lot of it is psychological. If you start out by saying, you know what, you didn't do your lifts, so we're going to spend an extra week on it. So now we're going to practice them. Exactly,
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah.
And they're daggers. They're like, no, I want the next song. But if you say, I go 3 times as a charm. Okay, so you come in, you play it the first time. Maybe they didn't do their lifts. I won't even mention it. I'll say, wow, that sounds really good. I can tell you practiced it this week. Well, we're going to do 3 times as a charm today. Can you play it for me again? And they'll play it again, and sometimes the lifts are there.
Fixed it.
Yeah, now they remember them. Now they played it once. Now they feel confident they can do the lifts. And then the third time, I'll say, if they still haven't got the lifts in there, I'll say, okay, can I play it for you one time? And you tell me what I'm doing that's a little different. And so a leading question will lead them to discover what the issue is. And I'll say, here's what my lifts look like. I'm going to pretend I'm just at the beach, and there's a wave that just came in, and I just kind of went up the wave and down the wave. And we'll kind of go around the piano, and we'll just kind of let our arms a lot of times they're just not comfortable with it. They're just not confident. And so if they play a chord, and they have to play their next chord, I'll say, now, if we do the lift, we come up, now we're changing shape, and we're into the next chord. We come up, we change shape, we're into the next chord, we change shape. And so I started calling them shapeshifters.
Shapeshifter.
I said, can you do your shapeshifter for me? And that's for kids who are kind of still in that, like, 5th, 6th grade.
Yes.
And stuff like that. They're like, oh,
Well,
that's...
7, 8, you can say it, and they don't get offended yet.
Right, exactly. Like, you know the age group, you know what their personality is. But then it becomes something cool to do. So if they can do their shapeshifter, now, if they're way up here, their hand is just, like, all over it's like, what? I'm like, what are you waving to?
Yeah.
You know, and have some fun with it. And give them something to laugh about. If you can get your students to laugh, they're going to relax.
Yep.
Yeah.
And then anything you ask them to do, they're going to be like, oh, can I do that again?
Yep.
So.
Okay, I want to do it again.
Yeah. Or let me show mom when they come in. Can I show mom how I did that? And if you give them like a ton of praise when they do the right thing and they don't go like if they do this sometimes.
Don't praise them.
I won't praise them, and
No.
sometimes I don't even acknowledge it.
Yeah.
Like I had one girl, this was honestly the only way she could do it. She had to exaggerate it, and even at the recitals she did that. But I didn't mess with it.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, you know what? And she was playing a really like Little Liza Jane from one of the favorite books, Little Liza Jane. And each time she did a lift, and it was seriously the way she wanted to do it, and she had to exaggerate it in order to do it. But now, a year later, she's doing her lifts, and they're just like this.
Yeah.
So don't give up on the lifts, because there's so many good reasons for them. The relaxation, getting rid of the tension. That's the thing. So many teachers have a hard time getting the students to do the lifts. So like, if I can get them to play the right notes and count to 2 on their half notes, and I'm going to call it a win, and I'm going to go on to the next piece. So if your students also get used to this routine of, okay, my teacher's going to make me play it 3 times in a row anyway, so my students know we're going to do 3 times as a charm. So we're not moving on to the next piece until we either play a duet or you've played your piece 3 times in a row successfully. And I'm not saying perfectly.
Yeah.
I'm like, you've got 2 or 3 goals, and if one of those goals is lifts, we are not moving on until you do the lifts. And they just learn. I have one student who's an adult who she would say, she came up with the resistance is futile.
Uh-huh.
She would tell me that. She's like,
Yeah.
I might as well not even.
She's trying to be honest.
Yeah. 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 And she knows, but I'm like, but you know, I wouldn't make such a big deal of it if I didn't know how important it was. She goes, oh, I know. She goes, and if she's missing something in her piece, you know, and this is a teacher who's a band director up in Manistee,
Yeah.
and she's going into her master's program. She's
Yeah.
going into her doctorate. She goes, I got to call you up and do some piano because piano is part of my doctorate program. So if it was something that she didn't want to hear from me, she wouldn't be calling back.
Yes.
But I've been consistent, and
Yes.
we've become friends, you
Yeah.
know, and it's like hard sometimes. She's an adult. So
She knows how much you believe it.
Yes.
It's not BS.
Right. Yeah. And it's not.
And it's not.
Because when I play something and I know I can freely move like this, and I can bring all this. Those notes up and just feel like, oh, I just grabbed those notes and I don't even know what I just played, but it sounded lovely to me.
Yes.
And the confidence, and then they see us do that, or we demonstrate a piece, and like she's watched me play something and she's like, wow, those lifts look amazing. I'm like, wow. Or if she's getting something wrong and she can't figure it out and it's been 2 weeks since a lesson, she'll start to play, and usually it's like a staccato and she's doing, you know, or she has to do like, I'll say, okay, well, what do you think is wrong? And she's going like this. She goes, let me guess the lifts. I go, yeah, there's no lifts. It's your wrist. What are you doing with your wrist? How come your wrist isn't moving? And she knows, like she can diagnose it right away now. And so our younger students won't, but we can lead them to that, and to where they start to realize what the issue is. And at home when they practice, a lot of times if they're missing a note over and over and over, they'll say, what would Miss Val want me to work on? Oh, probably the lift. I bet I didn't lift, so I didn't get to the new hand position. So that is something you can tell I'm very passionate about, but I'm going to stay. That's why I make these, because otherwise I go off track. So I'm going to come back. It all kind of surrounds around that.
But truly, that's probably so important, so it's okay if we spend a little long.
It is, yeah. Because I want you guys to build confidence in, you know, directing your students with it. And don't beat yourself up if it's not happening right away. A lot of times lifts won't happen until they're 6, 7, 8 months into their beginning set of lessons. A lot of times I don't even work on lifts actually until they've made it through, depending on their age, like through their whole primer book. I don't think that legato playing in the primer book is even proper. I think
Right.
they should all be, you know, if you're playing, you know, any, like, Ode to Joy. It's not Ode to, I don't know, just saying that.
Yeah, but we get there.
But yeah, it's detached quarter note, because guess what we're teaching the arm to do? See what my arm is doing? And if they learn that detached quarter note, the arm now is moving, and then I go, for teenagers, when they have to learn it, or adults, I go, can you do your piano punch? If you're doing this, or if they're doing legato, that's what it usually sounds like, right? And what's happening to my knuckle? Well, it's sinking. Where's my wrist? It's way too low. So by doing a little detached quarter note, then, oh, I can feel the nail breaking, but that's okay. That curve is going to happen that we're always wanting our kids to have the curve on their fingers. Adults, like today I had the guy, the 60-something-year-old, is playing, like this. And I said, what's going on with your bicep? What's your elbow doing? Oh, now it'll curve. So looking at those things, what we're doing is we're paying attention to their whole body. That's why we have to be 100%. Somewhere in here it says pay attention. Don't take your eyes off your student. It's like when I'm with my student, even if I have to go out and make a copy, I'll be listening. And if I'm at the copier and I hear something I can tell they didn't lift, I'll be like, excuse me. And they'll go back and play it again. They know, like, we can hear, we can tell when it's happening, when it's not. But typically, Haviland knows when I'm teaching, you won't see me. I'm like glued to the piano, to the student. My eyes are on their fingers. If I see this sink in, we'll come back and play it again. I don't believe in little contraptions. There's a new one going around right now. It's supposed to elevate the wrist. They have to learn to do it themselves. You can't strap something to a kid to make their wrist stay up. If they're not learning, they can do it with muscle. And if the teacher is teaching the direction, they will learn how to do it. Okay. So I put here if parent isn't present, I think it's important for parents to see it, for us to demonstrate it to them. For the young ones, 5, 6, 7, by the age of 8 or 9, unless there's other things going on, by the age of 8 or 9, they're usually able to remember and do what we need them to do. We've got, I don't know. See, like I said, some you'll know. I gotta have mom or dad come in.
Wait a second, I need to interrupt you a second time. What do you think about ball things?
You know what? I've got
those?
my little thing of balls right there. I haven't used them in years.
You haven't used them in years because it just doesn't.
No. They have fun with them. They like squeezing them.
Yeah.
And they like, I've done all kinds. I've done like Play-Doh.
Yeah.
I've done little clementine oranges for the littles and all that kind of stuff. But no, I don't think it's really helped. I haven't used them in years.
You don't think it really even helps build the strength of it?
No. Nope. I think it's really, it's starting with detached quarter notes.
Yeah.
What I do from day one, when they're like in those little yellow books over there, I give them chocolate chip fingers. And so we don't do all 5 fingers to start. We do 1 finger at a time. And we'll do, okay, here's your finger numbers and all that. Okay, choose a finger, roll the dice. Oh, you got a 2. We're going to do finger 2, and we're going to do chocolate chips. And so chocolate chips is it's a little favor thing that they do, but I kind of adapted it. And I use their poem, but I make them or I call it a chicken beak. So their first lesson, we'll do a chicken beak. And sometimes I've sent a video if the parent's not there. They're usually there for the first lesson. But a chicken beak, I'll show that, is going to be what's going to develop the muscle. And if the muscle develops properly, then the fingers curve. If we don't develop the muscle, the fingers are continually going to sink backwards. And so I'll go chicken beak, and they have to start here, and they have to do a bunch of chicken beaks. And then on the piano, I've even had adults do this. They have to do their whole scale. And and I won't care what they play. So, but with the really young ones, balance 2 on fingertip, press that little chocolate chip. And they have to roll or float with their hand in the lap. So as in any physical exercise, you have to give your muscles rest. And so we're developing a muscle. When we use the muscle, there's tension and there's strain, but that's healthy in a small dose. Then you rest. And we go, okay, now our left hand, roll the dice. Oh, you got a 3. Now we're going to do a chicken beak with finger 3. So we chicken beak our way around up here, and then we choose a key. I don't care what key. If they want to be a dinosaur and go balance 3 on, and it's like all the fun part, If there's 7, If there's 7, I'll say, can you do 7 chocolate chips? And they'll go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Now roll it, float to your lap. And then they just get into the habit of it. And after that, and I don't let them move around too much, but then the next thing they get to is they do the donuts. And now they have to do bigger. Now they do have to do big lifts. And I don't care how big they are. If they want to go like this, hey, they're lifting. And they're 5.
Yeah.
So if they learn how to do those lifts, if they're 7 and they do 7 donut dips, I don't care how big it is. It doesn't matter because you're not playing a song, right? But you're developing the muscle. So your question about the balls is that the ball is a visual, and it might help for those who need to see what part of my finger curves.
Right.
I'm not saying it's not a good thing to do.
Right.
I'm just saying don't rely on that to be the one thing that's going to keep your kids playing with curved fingers.
Right.
But if you're doing little things to develop the muscle, then the curve on the muscle is going to come, or the curve on the fingers is coming because the muscle in the wrist is stronger and it's supporting the fingers. There's the little muscles in the fingers, there's the bigger muscle group in here. And this is what even adults, you'll see adults come into a first lesson and their wrist is here and they're just, fingers are doing all this, right? And I start right there with adults and I'll say, we got to elevate our wrist.
That's why I need you.
And that's why I'm here.
That's why you're here. That's why we're here.
That's right. That's why I started music every day, because we're a community and we talk and we learn it all together. So let me see here. Let's go on to the next one. I put here, I am okay. This is like a practical music everyday thing. I'm okay if you have a student where parents don't sit in, and that parent needs to know how to do this. End the lesson 5 minutes early and say, hey, we're going to end 5 minutes early. We're going to go down and talk to mom and dad. If they're out in the patio on their phone, or they're at the table downstairs, or just text them and say, hey, can you meet me inside? Like if they're out in the parking lot.
Yeah.
I just need to show you something. Most of the times, like my parents, they know I'm going to want to talk to them at the end. So when your parent starts to realize, oh, teacher's going to need me, I'm going to come in. Yeah, be consistent. Some students I don't. They get older, they get past this stuff. See, if we do this stuff in the beginning, you get to level, usually if we're talking Faber, like level 2A. Usually by 2A, if we've done everything we need to do up until then, we're moving into eighth notes and we're moving into chords and pentascales and all those things that are coming up. If we start with eighth notes and chords and pentascales, all this other stuff is never going to happen. So my belief is that if we do it early when they're young, and we can make it fun and silly and goofy, and then we can have more fun too, because I like to be silly, fun, and goofy.
Yeah.
I like to get out the games, and I like to use my imagination.
Yeah. It's pictures and color.
Pictures and color. Sit on the floor. You'll see me in here sitting on the floor. Grab the markers. Get some off the bench. Relax. Get them back. So anyway, that's okay with me. End it early. Talk to the parents. 5 minutes. I don't want, this can happen too. A parent can come upstairs and wait until the end of the lesson, and then they want to ask all these questions, and now
after it's done and you have a student.
And that's not fair. The next student shouldn't have to wait while we demonstrate all of this. And then I put down here, make a technique reminders list on your assignment page. So this is what I use for assignment pages. So Taylor, I'll have, and you're welcome to use it. You've got your own hollow that you do. But I do a lot of drawing.
I copied her. It looks similar.
Yeah, you can make your own. This is just, I tell everybody tweak it if you want. But I have all these things, I'll just put a quick couple page numbers down.
Yep.
And then over here, I'll grab whatever their favorite color is, pink, purple, green, blue. I'll ask, what color you want today? And I'll grab, or they can pick the color. And I'll go, what do you think I'm going to write down on your reminder list today? And usually they'll say lifts, or half notes, or whatever the thing is, And if it's chocolate chip fingers or chicken beak, I'll go, okay, can you draw a picture of a chicken? And for the young ones, if it's a picture of something, they're going to see the picture and go, oh yeah, I got to do my chicken beaks. But if there's nothing here, nothing that reminds them, they're going to go home and they're not going to think about it. But if they see something that jumps off the page, they take this out, they take out their binder, their folder, and the first thing they're going to see is like, oh, look at that chicken that I drew. And then mom's going to be like, well, why do you have a chicken on your page? Oh, Miss Bell wants me to do chicken beaks. Oh, what are chicken beaks? Oh, it's this. And then they do the chicken beaks. So that's just a little example of how these little things can come together. So make it colorful, bright, cheerful, fun. Kids love to draw in color. Use 1 to 2 word. I've learned that too. I've seen, you probably know what I'm talking about, Hobble, but a teacher who, the whole page it was word, and then the kid came to me and I did their lesson like subbed, and I looked at their lesson sheet, and it was just covered in like little paragraphs going this way. And
Well, you did a whole lesson, write them an essay?
Yeah. And the parent's not going to read it.
Yeah, no.
The kid's not going to read it. I didn't even want to read it.
The parent might even think, oh wow, she must be a good teacher. She wrote a lot of things good down. But as a teacher, you see that, you're like, unless it's in their book and there's a little man and he's going like that, or like, Char did that for me in my lesson, and I was like, see, I can say that in a lesson, but if it's drawn in their book, then it makes me feel happy.
Yep. You can highlight it or draw it. Edge
Look,
on.
2 eyes, just simple stuff.
Yeah, like
simple
get your
notes.
attention. It's easy,
A
yeah.
hot air balloon, a little chicken,
Yep.
that's gonna be perfect.
Yep. Put it on the page. You
Put it
know,
on the
a
page.
turtle, go slow down, draw a turtle. You know, those are the things that they are gonna. And if they can draw it themselves, that's even better, because then they own it.
That's
okay?
true.
So, and if you're getting up to like the grade school, middle school, high school, like, well, by high school, usually I don't want you to write anything down. I don't even send you some of them because they're going to get crumpled up and they'll be in the parking lot. So when they're like grade school, these are great because parents are starting to go, you know, you're independent, now you have to keep track. And so I will stick to a list of, at the most, 3 things, 1 to 2 words. It'll be lifts, rhythm, maybe a scale or something like that. Whatever I want them to remember. 1 to 2 words. If it's breathe, if it's, I put loosey-goosey here to remind them not to let tension tighten things up for them. Elevate the wrists, I do that a lot. The word elevate is one word that immediately you think of going up. And instead of saying lift your wrists, hold your wrists up, your wrists are too low. You know, those kind of things, automatically we just shut it off. But if I go elevate, sometimes I just use that one word and it automatically brings the wrist up. So whatever words you can come up with, it'll be different with everybody, but come up with your own list of terminology that you know you can use to keep them doing what you need them to do. I think I went over all of that. So is there anything in that area that I'll go back over?
Loosey goosey, I think you just mean this. Like, get comfortable.
Well,
What's
actually,
loosey-goosey?
a little bit more. Loosey-goosey to me is the elbows.
All of those.
So usually when I say loosey-goosey, it's because their elbows are squeezing in, or the elbows are way up here. We want them to be relaxed, right?
Yes.
And so if the shoulders are up, the elbows are up. And I'll go, oh, let's get a little loosey-goosey. And I'll just, usually it's the elbows. Bounce your shoulders. Loosey-goosey elbows. Elevate your wrists. And notice how my voice changes and my tone. Sometimes I'm whispering.
Yeah.
Because if I'm whispering, it's coming across as, sometimes I can say, what did she say? Yep. Just turn the volume down, but then they focus and they get more relaxed. So yeah, that's what loosey-goosey, that's usually for elbows, but you can use that for anything. If you need to do loosey-goosey like this, maybe they're too tense.
Again, I would say for loosey-goosey for me is all like a reset. Kind of like breathe. Because now I'm saying too many things and I realize that I said too many things. And so I'm like, okay, and take it off.
Yep. I've had some kids that actually just go all the way back like this. They do a back bend off the bench. Sometimes they roll off the bench and I go, okay, are you ready to come back? Yeah, okay. This chair has been great. It's the sit and spin chair. Some kids just need to spin around 3 times. I go, do you need to take a sit and spin? Okay, I'm going to write some notes down. I'll be writing this kind of stuff on their little page. Oh, you can have 3 sit and spins. You can have 1 if it's a kid who's, they can't inhibitory control.
Yeah.
So you know your kids and you know what you can do. Some kids have to do, this was a really soft floor. They love to get down and just do a cartwheel or a somersault. So that even is a reset. So that's what that is. The next one that there's so much to this one, and you guys have probably gone over it at Grand Valley, the issue of musician injury. I don't even call it piano injury because I think it's across the board, any instrument it can happen. You can Google it and find all kinds of stuff about it. This link I found, and I just pasted it here, and if you guys want to look it up, I'll email this as well so you can click the link. It had a plethora of information and different things about why technique is so important and how to avoid the injury. And I'm going to leave that for you as kind of your homework. Can you do your own research and find out more about what, I mean, I think piano, not just piano, any music teacher needs to know
Drums
what
is
it
really
is.
bad.
Yeah.
Because they're gripping something.
They're holding tight.
Flute's really bad.
Mm-hmm.
And those are the ones I know about.
Yep. Every instrument, every teacher that I interview, this comes up, we talk about it, and there's something specific to that instrument. That's why I have teachers, like I had you interview with Mary, because she's the trumpet teacher. I don't know anything about a trumpet. My brother played trumpet, I play piano. She's the one who knows the kind of things that I would know about piano. That's why she doesn't teach piano. She plays piano, but she says, I don't know the technique like I should to be able to teach it.
Yeah.
She teaches every other instrument, but she leaves this to the experts. You know, and it's like, and that's what we should do. It's like, that's another thing that will come up. You know, I usually go over this with teachers during our teacher meeting. It's like, you know, every year, and this year we did a pretty significant price increase on our lesson fees. We have parents that are paying an awful lot of money to bring their kids to us. What we give in exchange is that we provide the expertise, the knowledge, the understanding, and the ability to teach and communicate these things. It's like they could pay somebody in their neighborhood $15-20 to do a half-hour lesson. Why are we charging $12 higher? Well, because you're not just getting someone who's going to sit and have a cup of coffee and hang out. You know,
Be
they're
a nanny.
yeah, babysitter, and that's why we have kids raising up the prices too. Parents who want a babysitter, they're not coming to us.
Yeah.
Parents who want a serious teacher and they're serious about their kids learning, they're like, okay, they're charging more than what I can pay this person up the road, but look at what I'm getting. And that's the service we provide. And so I want you guys to do your homework here. For our next session, you know, can you write down what your experience is with piano injury, and we'll share it, because I think everybody has similar but also some very different things. I know we're probably just about out of time here, and my voice is starting to go again, so I'm going to save that. But I've got a little bit more here that we didn't get to. You probably can read through it. We might pick it up there next time. There's so much
let's
to
pick
it.
it up there.
Yeah.
Even if we can't read through it, I still would like to hear a little synopsis about it.
We'll pick it up there next time.
Yeah.
We'll start with the homework assignment,
Mhm.
and then, in the meantime, feel free to call me or text me or grab me for a couple minutes if you want to go over more. Okay?
Awesome. Thank you so
All
much,
right, you're
Valerie.
welcome.
It's been really cool to meet you too.
Yeah, you too.
Taylor.
Yeah.
So, what a great session.
Good.
I'm leaving with like
Glad
lots
it
of
could be
things in my
helpful.
brain.
Okay. Lots
Like
of
I need
things.
to go back to my computer and make more things of the art stuff.
Well,
go to
yeah,
Hobby
she's
Lobby and
very
do some
artistic.
Oh.
Which Hobby I want to talk